In 2011, Matt Lee was traveling from Michigan to California after just being laid off of his job and had just received a job offer in California. His dad gave him $2,400 in cash so he could get his new start, and he hit the road. Whenever he ended up in Nevada, however, he was pulled over by an officer, and after giving the officer his license and registration, was asked how much cash he was carrying on him. The officer told Lee that he only cared about amounts larger than $10,000, so Matt went ahead and told him about the money that he received from his dad. And the officer told him to step out of his car, and he was going to run a canine search. And after rounding the car 3 times and finding nothing, the officer concluded that Matt must have been traveling from Michigan to California to purchase drugs. So he confiscated the money, the whole $2,400, under civil law, which is legal. Even though Matt was never convicted, he still got his property taken from him. Most Americans don't really realize that this is legal and that it's actually happening, and so first we'll discuss exactly what civil forfeiture is, where it came from, and then we will discuss the countless cases of innocent people that got in trouble with this law, and where the billions of dollars that police gain from this law goes to. So first, the idea began in the Prohibition era around 1920 to 1933, and was put in place for bootleggers who were selling alcohol, buying alcohol. The police would take their cars and cash and other property to disillusion or discourage people from buying alcohol or selling alcohol during that period. However, it died right after 1930. Back in 1980, it came back during the war on drugs, and it gave power to the police by they were able to take money that was under the assumption of drug association without convicting people, and also made the highways safer. So what exactly is it, though? It gives police the right to seize anything they deem in association with illegal activities. So with or without conviction or not for that person. So it's considered in rem proceedings, meaning the case is against the property, not necessarily the owner of the property. So Scott Bullock from the Justice Institute, or the Institute of Justice, describes that under civil forfeiture, your property is guilty until you yourself are able to prove it innocent. So it doesn't carry the same rights as criminal forfeiture, which you are proving you are not guilty and you also have right to an attorney. It's the exact opposite. So you are proving your own innocence and you also don't have right to an attorney. So that's the money that you would be paying for a lawyer to fight your case would be right out of your pocket. So, we talked about what civil forfeiture is, so now we can consider what happens to the everyday people that aren't necessarily doing anything illegal. So in Philadelphia, the Saravellis were just minding their own business in their home, and the police came to their door and arrested their 22-year-old son named Giovanni for selling drugs out of their home. However, Christos and his wife both confessed that they didn't know anything about that. The house was in their name, not their son's. However, they were kicked out for a day, and thankfully just a day. They were back in their home afterward, under civil forfeiture law, because the house was associated with illegal selling of drugs. So their case still isn't resolved. However, they still are living in their house, but they don't know if it will get taken away or if it will ever be back in their name. On November 1st, 2011, Jose Geronimo Sorto and his brother-in-law were traveling through Virginia in a rented car and were pulled over for speeding. They were carrying about $28,000 in cash from church funds in their church in Baltimore. The money was supposed to be used for a new plot of land to build a new church and also put a new trailer for a congregation in North Carolina. They gave the police officer that pulled them over all of the papers that they needed for the tax exemptions for their church funds and explained the whole situation to him. However, they reported that really the officer just completely disregarded anything that they were saying and was convinced that their story contained inconsistencies. So he took their money and they were escorted to the police station where it took over 3 hours to get anything sorted out. In the meantime, 3 lawyers were offering to help them solve their case for free. Thankfully, they were eventually able to get their money back in 3 months. However, for the average person, it takes up to a year to typically resolve these issues. And for 350 reported people, it took over 2 years. And you're also paying for your lawyer out of your pocket. So it's most of the time, or in some cases rather, their case will just end up forfeiting because they can't afford to fight it. So now that we've discussed what happens to typical people, now we can look at where all of this money that police are getting actually goes and what it's used for. So for the most part, it's used for police training. However, John Oliver reported back in 2011 that most police departments actually get to keep all of the revenue from civil forfeiture. So in 2012, Columbia, Missouri Citizen Police Board meeting, Officer Ken Burton stated that there are some limitations on it, it being spending. However, he paused and then continued on to say that, however, there actually aren't any limitations on it. He also described that the money is typically used for wants rather than needs, whereas needs would have to be formally purchased. He also described it as pennies from heaven and used to get you a toy or something. It's been described as policing for profit. People often question the motive behind civil forfeiture because in just between 1989 and 2010, there was a recorded over $13 billion collected from just civil forfeiture collections alone. With that number increasing in more recent years, like 2008, 9, and 10, they were really increasing. So a lot of people, after hearing that, would question the morals behind why this is a legal law. A concerned citizen reported in Texas at a public hearing that, with or without a law degree, everyone here knows that purchases of kegs of beer, margarita machines, and bottles of Crown Royal for office parties, as was done in Montgomery County, don't qualify for official purposes. So in Texas, that money was used for office parties and a bunch of alcohol. So our law enforcement should not be legally allowed to seize a citizen's property without conviction. Nevertheless, use it for what they deem fit. Civil forfeiture is unlawful. No one should have their property taken away before ever being convicted of a crime or brought before a jury. It's supposed to give power to the police to fight the war on drugs. However, more innocent people than guilty people are getting caught in the crossfire and getting their property unlawfully taken away. And the law enforcement is profiting from it.